All
Hello,
right.
everyone.
Lights up.
Yes. First of all, I am not Mario. That's a Mario.
It's a me.
Um, so you might maybe remember if you were at Droidcon Italy a couple of years ago, we did an opening keynote together where we speculated about Android P being Android Pizza. Um, like 2 years ago, we were a bit young and naive. Now we're a bit like we've grown up a bit. We both have T-shirts with dogs, for example. So
Totally
that's
casual.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, just random, but still. So now we reckon today that is most likely going to be Droidcon pizza Nutella because obviously it has to be a dessert.
Of course.
Um,
Has to.
Mario, in the meantime, is going to work for Amazon, and last year was here talking about in-app purchases. He cashed out big, but he's still here this year again, and he's moved to TVs. I don't know how he's going to make money out of TVs, but I'm sure he's going to tell us. So, hands together for Mario.
Thank you. Thank you, Seb. He's awesome. You should go to his talk as well. Thank you very much, guys. I'm really excited to be back for Droidcon. I've been at all of them, and I've seen it grown year over year. And I'm so pleased to see it grow to this size. So very, very happy to be here. But why am I here? Am I here because basically this is what I do. So my role with Amazon is technology evangelist for Europe. I know that this title sounds kind of weird, and that's because it is weird. Has been officially voted in Italy, actually, as the second most stupid job title ever. The number one is Creative Catalyst. I have no idea what a creative catalyst is, but I know what I do, which is to engage with the community of the apps and games developers in Europe and make sure that you guys are fully up to speed with what we do at Amazon. Before joining Amazon, I've been an Android developer, I would say, since the early days of Android. Living the life of the indie developer, publishing my own apps, quite a few apps actually. With a discrete success, I've been working also as a consultant. I've been working in startups, in co-working spaces. So pretty much done the whole evolution of an Android developer. And now I travel across Europe. Teaching developers how to build high-quality Android apps. So Android is still my day-to-day, and I do still a lot of development. And recently, in the last year, I would say, my team has been focusing a lot on an interesting product, which is TV. And that's why I'm here, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about TV here in Italy for the first time as well. So let's go back to the early days of Android. If you think about it, Android started as an OS for mobile devices, right? Like it was supposed to have a small memory footprint, to be battery efficient, to be able to run the whole day on a handheld devices. But then the Android platform evolved. Around 2012, it started to scale up. It scaled up to tablets, meaning that for developers like us, we had an awesome new opportunity to start leveraging a much bigger real estate on the device screens. So even the customer experience, the user experience, actually changed and evolved across the years. And now we're probably facing a further evolution of the Android ecosystem. And this evolution, it's interesting to me that an OS that was thought to run on mobile devices is transitioning now to what we can maybe even say is the less mobile device ever, which is the TV, right? But here's the good news. As Android developers, we have an incredible new occasion now. And this occasion is to start to create for a new customer experience. The UX and UI and even the type of coding that you do when you build for the big screen is actually quite different than from the one that you do on a handheld device. So how is people using these new devices, these new streaming media players and smart TVs? So the interesting thing is that, of course, these devices are thought for consuming content, but the type of content you can consume is much bigger than what you can do with the normal TV, right? can actually run full-fledged application on this. And the cool thing is that the experience can be shared with all the people in the room, so it's a real 10-foot experience. But the type of interaction that you have with these devices is different, and the way you approach content is also different on these devices. And here's where we dip our toes into monetization. So how does it mean to build an application for TV in order to monetize it? How do people interact with this app? So if you think about the evolution of payment on any mobile device, the first approach was paid apps, right? Like you build an app and you start selling your app for a price, which is good, meaning that as developers we can monetize. The problem there is that you have to convince your users that they have to go to the first paywall to access the content. So the problem here is that your users can't get a glimpse of your content before paying for it, which can be a bottleneck. Something that after a few years, advertisement tried to fix. So with advertisement, the very cool thing is that you can offer the content mostly for free and monetize through ads. Well, advertisement actually introduces another risk, and this risk is to overexpose your users to advertisement, to create a bad UX because you're showing too much advertisement. That's even a bigger risk when it comes to TV. So then there was a new model, and we talked about that last year in my presentation, was in-app purchase. So in-app purchase basically combines the best of both worlds. Through the freemium model, you can introduce your content for free. Basically, downloads are free for freemium content. And then you can gate the premium content through a paywall which is inside the app, which allows you to open the doors to much more customers and then to monetize the ones that are really interested into your content. But now let's talk about TV. When it comes to TV, there is one monetization model that is becoming maybe the go-to monetization model, and that one is subscriptions. It's no mystery that one of the biggest categories for consumption on TV, of course, is media streaming. So consuming video content or audio content as well. But at the end, most of these services, they offer you a recurring payment, which is a subscription again. And if you think about it, the right way to deal with this is to build your app in a way that is showcasing your content, but also driving subscriptions. And is people actually using this type of monetization? Yes. We on Amazon Fire TV, we're actually seeing massive uplift in the last couple years when it comes to consumption. This is data that comes from UK. I'm based in UK, and Fire TV there is by far one of the best-selling devices. And we saw a 1,400% year-over-year category revenue coming up for on-demand movie streaming. So we're in the 4 digits here. It's a massive opportunity. Another big opportunity is sports. So on-demand movie content, so video content, sports are probably where, if you're thinking about, okay, what should I do with this content? Subscriptions is probably the way to go. So let's talk a little bit about Fire TV. So how can Amazon help you accessing this new pool of customers? Well, first of all, because Fire TV is by far, we can say, the best-selling device in the countries where it's available. Since last year, has been the #1 best-selling SMP in the US, UK, and Germany. And every day there are millions of minutes consumed on these devices. So why is it relevant for Android developers like you would ask? How can I create apps for it? So the cool thing is that on Fire TV, the OS that runs on these devices, FireOS 6, is actually based on Android. It's full-fledged Android, meaning that as developers, you don't need to use new tools to create your apps. You can use the tools that you're used to, like Android Studio, of course, and build high-quality native applications for these devices. So here's where Android developers can really take the lead and build the next generation of high-quality media streaming applications. So let's talk about the device themselves. So the Fire TV family is actually composed of mainly two devices. There is the Fire TV device, which is currently not available here in Italy, but is available in the US, in UK, in Germany. And that device is 4K compatible, it's a quad-core CPU, 2 gig of RAM, and plenty of horsepower to run even the more demanding media streaming applications. On the other side, there is the Fire TV Stick, which still can run full HD content as a powerful quad-core CPU, 1 gig of RAM. So even with the Fire TV Stick, you can run very high-quality Android native applications. And the Fire TV Stick also has one big advantage that is actually available even here in Italy. A few months ago, we started selling the Fire TV Stick Basic Edition. The main difference with the Fire TV Stick available in countries like UK is that the Fire TV Stick Basic Edition doesn't come with the Alexa voice remote, because Alexa is not available here in Italy. But the device is basically the same. The hardware is the same. So when you develop something for the Fire TV Stick, you can target all of them. So we invested a lot in Fire TV. We've been listening a lot to both developers and customer feedback on these devices. There are millions of Fire TVs out there. So actually, last year, we introduced a completely redesigned UI for Fire TV, what we call the cinematic experience on Fire TV, which actually gives developers and content owners a much bigger real estate. So what you see up there, where the Grand Tour guys are, that's actually is not even a banner. That's a full-fledged video that can run and that you as a developer can provide to showcase your content on the homepage of Fire TV. So we work with developers and partners to showcase the best of the content on Fire TV. And now, even here in Italy, you can access this content. Okay, so enough for talking about the hardware and the situation of the business. So we're developers. So what is the first thing that you do most of the time when you get a new Android device? You just plug your cable in and you want to deploy your applications, right? At least that's what I do. So how do you do that on a TV device? How do you do that on a Fire TV? So, there is the classic approach in which you take your micro USB cable, plug it into the Fire TV, and then turn on ADB, and it just works. But think about the situation you'll be in. Unless you have an extremely long micro USB cable, I mean, you might have that, I don't. Most of the times, you will be probably just a few inches away from a few centimeters away from your screen. And the type of experience you have when you're designing your application, when you're building your application, is actually probably not the same experience as your customers will experience your app, right? You really want to start building your application and test it in a 10-foot experience. So how do you do that? How do you connect to a device that is a few meters away from you? Well, you'll do that over Wi-Fi, of course, which is extremely easy on a Fire TV device. So, of course, you need to be on the same Wi-Fi network of your Fire TV. You just go to Developer Options, turn on ADB debugging, and by default, your device will be available for wireless connection. And you can start deploying your applications over the air. What you have to do, you just go to the network page and copy the IP address of your device. And then, of course, you go on your terminal and you run the 3 magic words, ADB connect, and you copy here the IP address of your device. Click enter, and at that point, you are connected to your device. And you can start deploying your Android applications like you would do when you're connected via cable. So again, 2 options. It's entirely up to you. This is what I prefer when I'm creating TV applications. But now, okay, so now we're connected. We're ready to go. How do I do this? How do I create an Android application that works on any Android-enabled TV? So, when we first released the first Fire TV in the United States in 2014, we thought it was a good idea to release it with what we call the Fire TV SDK add-on. So this SDK contained all the components, all the classes that you needed to build the high-quality applications for Fire TV. And then we started listening to your feedback, to the developers' feedback. And developers were like, seriously, another SDK? Just for Fire TV? What if I'm developing for something else? What if I'm developing for an Android TV? How does that work? So we thought, you know what? Actually, probably having a dedicated Fire TV SDK is not really the way to go. So we deprecated the SDK. And with FireOS 5, we actually introduced full support for the V17 Leanback library. So for the ones not familiar with Leanback, the Leanback library is a Google-provided library to build 10-foot experiences. So to build TV applications, basically. And it's a default Android library, meaning that, of course, it runs on devices like Fire TV, but on any Android TV as well. And the cool thing is that if you compile the Leanback project and launch it on a Fire TV, it runs out of the box without changing anything. And it will actually look something like this. So this is a sample that I compiled against and is against Fire TV, and is actually running on a Fire TV device. As you can see, all the animation works, all the components works, and even the playback works fine. But when we started thinking again about, okay, so Leanback works, which is great, meaning we can start deploying application cross-platform, cross-OS, technically. Still Android, but you can target FireOS and also Android. But then we were listening to the feedback coming from media streaming developers. And this feedback was basically, yes, Leanback is a great tool. It's an interesting starting point because it gives you the UI. But we actually do have content somewhere. We do have videos. We have a database with metadata. And we need to connect Leanback, which is a front-end application, with our backend, right? So most of the time you will have this. You will have your TV application, which is a front-end, and then you will have content. Most of the time, a piece of content is composed, of course, of the metadata in your DB and a media file. It could be a video or an audio file. And you need to connect your TV app with the content. And actually, you might have a lot of content. You might have hundreds of thousands of videos with thousands of data points, right? And you need to connect these to your TV application. If you're using Leanback, you realize very soon that, yes, it's good as a starting point, as a demo, but when you have actually to connect to an existing DB, to an existing backend service, well, actually, there is a lot of plumbing that you have to do. You have to build your wrappers. You need to expose your content. Most of the time, you'll probably expose the content in form of an API, so through a JSON or an XML feed. And then you have to build the parsers. You need to parse the JSON. And you have to do that yourself. And not all the developers and teams have resources to do that. So how do we solve that problem? How can you build a front-end application very fast? And also, what if you have to add other components? What if you want to add subscriptions? What if you want to add subtitles? What if you want to add advertisement in your app? Or if you want to add social login? There are a lot of different components that can go into building a full-fledged production-wise TV application. So we thought, okay, how can we solve that? Actually, the question that we asked ourselves with our Amazon product team for Fire TV was, how can we help developers build high-quality applications for TV, not in months, not in days, but in minutes? How can you do that? How can you build a fully working, full-fledged application in minutes? And to answer this question, we actually built two new products. The first one is the Fire App Builder, and is the one that we're going to analyze most today. And the other one is the Web App Starter Kit. So we call the first one Fab, because Fire App Builder is also because it's fabulous. And the other one is Web App Starter Kit, so it's WASC. So I'll talk about Fab and WASC. So both Fab and WASC share the same concept. And this concept is that it should be possible for you, if you already have a backend with video and metadata and all the other components that you need, and expose this content through a feed, and then have your front-end application just connect to this feed and populate the interface with everything that you need. And that's exactly what both Fab and Wask do. So the main difference between the two is that Fab is a full-fledged Android project. It's based on Java. As you will see in a second, we actually added layers on top of the basic Java framework. And is a TV-first template. So it's thought to run on TV first. It supports a variety of players. It is optimized for the big screen. It's fully customizable. And the same thing applies for the web app starter kit. So let's deep dive into it. And let's start talking about the Fire App Builder. So the Fire App Builder is an easy, fast, and beautiful template to create high-quality applications, for media streaming applications for TV. It's a plug-and-play template for audio and video, so you can build both. And allows you to create a template in less than an hour. So when I say this, less than an hour, I mean that I saw developers building a fully working application in about 15 minutes. How does it work? What's the architecture of Fire App Builder? So it is composed of multiple modules or plugins that you can turn on and off for a lot of different functionalities. And we'll talk about these features in a second. And it handles JSON feeds, branding, and customization. Actually, it supports both JSON and XML. So the idea is that you expose your content through a JSON, and Fab just takes this content and populates the interface. Can be extended with your own code. Actually, Fab is available on GitHub and is open source. It supports, of course, all of the Amazon Fire TV family. It's developed by Amazon, after all. But it also runs on any Android TV devices, given its Marshmallow or app. So it pretty much covers, I would say, most of the connected TV Android devices out there. So what does it look like? So this is the main interface when you run the Fire App Builder for the first time. Everything you see on screen here is actually being dynamically generated from a JSON. So what it does is takes a JSON, parse all the metadata, and present it to the user. So basically, what I did for this template is technically nothing. I had the JSON, and I just plugged it in with the Fire App Builder, and the application just works. So modules, as I said before, there are modules for a variety of things. Not all the apps are the same, and we don't want them to be. You might have different features in your apps, but the bottom line is that it shouldn't be difficult for you as a developer to implement these features. I think about something like managing subscriptions. That's something that is non-trivial, right? You have to deal with all the rights management, verify if the user is actually entitled to a specific piece of content. What if there is free trial? What if there is, what if the customers cancel their subscription? Social logins. What if you want to add Facebook login with Amazon, or your own login system with email and password? You can do that. Advertisement, analytics, that supports for things like Crashlytics as well. And of course, the media players. We know that the panorama of media players is various. So we abstracted the media player into a separate module that you can turn on and off. Or you can even develop just your own module for the media player and use that inside the Fire App Builder application. So what is the workflow? How can you actually do this? How do you actually connect the Fab to your content? It's actually pretty easy. The first thing that you have to do is to configure your feed. So somehow you need to expose your content as a feed. So when if you are hosting your content somewhere, let's say on AWS, for example, wink, wink, you can fetch all the content from AWS, and maybe you have your metadata stored in a DynamoDB and your media file store on S3, for example. If you can wrap all of this and expose it through a JSON, so through an API, actually we don't care about how this JSON is formatted, and that's because Fab, doing some amazing magic, actually allows to automatically format the fetching of the content to what Fab is capable of understanding. I will show you in a demo in a few seconds. So the second part is actually to set up the recipe. The recipe is basically when you define how your content maps into what the Fire App Builder is capable of understanding. Things like the title, the description, the actual link to the images and video. Then you can customize the UI and the modular components of the application. And then you just launch the application and your job is done. So let's see exactly step by step how these could look like. So step one, as I said, is to format your feed, your JSON feed. So let's say that, for example, for a single video, your JSON might look like this, right? You might have a unique ID for the content, a title, in this case, my awesome LOL's videos, a description for the content, the duration of the video, some thumbnails and images that you want to showcase in the UI of your app. The video URL, which is of course a link to the actual file that you want to stream, and then some categories that you want your content to end up with. These are like tags that you can expose, and the Fire App Builder is capable of understanding these tags, these strings, and then group your content automatically into the application. So you don't even have to build wrappers or adapters or parsers for your categories because Fab does that for you. So let's say that this is your video, and you could have called these tags in any way possible. How do you do this? That's because the magic happens in the recipe. The recipe is this JSON file which is contained inside the Fire App Builder, and that is where you map the tags of your feed to the tags of the Fire App Builder. So let's say that you have your title is called title, and even in the Fire App Builder is called title. So you do title at title in the match list of the recipe, and it's done. You remember that in our video feed, the URL was called video URL. Actually, in the Fire App Builder, it's just called URL. So how do you map those two? You just do video URL at URL. So through this notation, you can just map your feed to the feed that the Fire App Builder expects. So once you do this, and that is something that might take, I don't know, 30 seconds, maybe less if you don't have many tags. Once you do this, you can immediately run the application. It will run, and it will fetch the content, and you don't have to do anything else. You just map your feed to the feed of the Fire App Builder. Of course, you have to give the fab in the configuration file. There's just the URL of your feed. That could be myfeed.json, www.myfeed.json, something like that, and pass it to the fab, and it will just work. What if you want to swap components? So I said before that you can turn on and off some plugins, some features. How do you do that? So let's say that you want to swap the Facebook authorization to use login with Amazon, which is a very easy, a straightforward login system on Fire TV. It's very easy. You just go on settings.gradle and substitute the string Facebook auth component with login with Amazon component. You do the same thing in the build.gradle. Instead of compiling Facebook auth component, you substitute the string with login with Amazon component. And what if you then want to decide, okay, I want to show the login auth system only when the user tries to play a specific content. There is another JSON file in the template, which is called navigator.json, which has a list of all the activities that the Fire App Builder provides. So in this case, we want to show the login system before the content gets played. You just go where the playback activity is and set verify screen access to true. When the template sees that this flag is set to true, it will assume that you want to show some content. We'll go back and see, okay, which plugin has been turned on. In this case, it's the login with Amazon system. So it will just show the login with Amazon interface. And when the user, with one click, the user with one click will be able to share their credentials and log in into your application. So have you seen, we change basically 3 strings, no, 2 strings and 1 Boolean. And we activated an auth system. And it's the same thing as if you want to authorize Facebook login. What if you want to customize the font? So we know that with Nougat and the new versions of Android, you can customize the font pretty easily. But what about earlier version of Android? What if the TV that you're targeting is before Nougat? So we thought about that, and if you're an Android developer, you know how changing font is painful before Nougat. So we actually changed that, and we decided to introduce calligraphy as a library into the app. And for peace of mind, we also included 40 embedded fonts. So what if you want to customize the UI, the look and feel? What if you want to change from a slide interface to a more grid-style interface similar to Leanback? You just change from content browse activity to full content browse activity. So you're not even changing a string, you're changing 4 characters in the activity and then in the description of in your manifest, basically. And then it just changes the look and feel, completely showcasing also the categories that are mapped into your template. So I hope that you guys, were interested about using Fire Builder, which is the easiest way to build applications for TV, likely. So again, if you want to play with it, you can just clone the repo from GitHub and find full documentation following the short link. Don't worry, we'll be sharing these slides as well. So I'm not going to deep dive into it, mostly because the Web App Starter Kit works exactly the same as Fab. It's just a web template. So if you have web developers, colleagues, and you're thinking about going fully web, this is what you can do. I'm not gonna spend time on it. So I want to leave the stage with a final challenge to you guys as developers. So of course, developing for TV is probably the next big thing when you're thinking about scaling up your application. But what's next in this realm? So I'm going to preemptively answer a question that I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to ask me, which is, when is Alexa coming to Italy? I cannot answer this question. But the challenge that I offer you guys is start thinking about voice as the input system for your devices. And this is not just for Amazon devices. This is probably the next wave of development. So I'm sure that maybe in Droidcon next year or in a few years, we'll be here talking about how you can use voice to enable and enhance your native applications. So I hope that you guys start thinking about it as well. If you like this presentation, there is a free ebook that you can download. You just go to bit.ly/free TV ebook. Fire TV ebook, sorry. That's an ebook that I wrote and contains pretty much everything that you saw today and more. So I hope you liked it. And if you're interested and want to start playing with it, if you scan this QR code, after Droidcon today, I'm going to raffle 3 Fire TV devices and send them to the winners. So please do. It's very important also for me to know if you like this presentation, if you have comments around what you've seen. And here's my details. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer them. Add me on Twitter. I'm pretty much around all the time. I'll be around in the next days as well. So thank you very much. I don't know if you have time for questions, but thank you very much. No time. Cool. All right. No time for questions, so I'll be jumping out. But I'll be around, so if you want to grab me, please do. Cheers, guys. Give you 2 seconds. Take a picture of this. Blah, blah, blah. Cool. I'll be sharing on Twitter as well the short link. So if you follow me at Marix1, I'll share the link there as well. Thank you, guys. No, ci mancherebbe.